Okay, that's our rear wheel off the 38 Knucklehead. This here, just in focus, is our stuff all spread out and clean. We've got new grease here, and that's the rear brake. We'll get to that later. That is the stuff not sorted yet out of the 40. Okay. And what we're using, the grease, is out of this bucket. Special grease I got 25 years ago from Lubrication Engineers. I'm still working on that big bucket of grease. So we're going to also film with two other cameras here at different angles and try and get you to see what I'm doing. Now, this here, there's two used ones and one of them is out of the 38. So I'm going to try to pick it up to the camera and get you to see what I'm talking about and explain what I'm doing here. So I'm going to pull this camera over here on the back and focus it here. There we go, to try and give you the best view of what's going on. So I'm going to go turn on the other cameras here, and we're going to rebuild this hub. Okay, camera 2 is on, and camera 3 is on. Okay, now what we have is an old stock wheel that sat around for decades, and somebody, without greasing it, put it on the bike and went down the road. So you have end play on this, and there's a gasket here, which we have a original gasket here off the 40, which I'm going to put on this machine here because I'm rebuilding this hub first, so I'm going to use the good gasket there. The gasket on the 38 had eaten up, and your end play on your thrust has everything to do with the thickness of this gasket. So when this gasket goes away from age, then all of a sudden your thrust is off. So it created wear. This here is the original small end bearing off the 38, and the bearings have actually chewed into it. So this is no good. So we have two good used ones here. We pulled out of the stash. And the main thrust bearing has a little wear from this thrust problem, but it's usable. Now what we have here, this is the original main thrust washer there, and it's got wear. You see the wear here, and this is the original thrust washer here, and it's got wear here. That's no good. Don't use it. They do remake these. Now I've been told that these early hubs are different. This is the late style with more grease here. I got that out of my stash. That's the late style. It's an original one. It's used. It's still in usable shape. We have no feeling of wear. It has marks. There's no ridges. Follow me? This is the original one here. It has ridges. I can feel my fingernail. And see, it has no grease holes for packing. So this is the first one that they used here in these early hubs. So that's your difference. And the second difference is this. Here's your internals. And the right one, on my right side, as I'm facing this camera here, that is out of the 40. And the left one It's out of 38. You have a height difference. This height difference here is for a end spacer. So when you have a thrust problem, your end spacer eats up, not your internal hub. As long as everything is greased and thrusted properly, it's just fine. So you can see the wear difference on the 40. But my guess right now is the machine has somewhere between 20 to 35,000. Excuse me, guys. And this one here, on our new old stock hub, look how clean that is. It's wow. That's how I can tell you this hub is new old stock. It's got no wear. So, what you got to do is we have an explosion here off the panhead book, which is the same basic concept. Borrow this and show you. Right here gives me my sequence. So, always break your book out. I can do it by memory, but it's just a good idea to have your book in front of you, even if you do it by memory. You forget, you have a brain fart, the book's right there. Just no problem. No questions, no problem. Real simple. So, first thing you got to do is everything goes in from the big side like this here. Boom. So you got to put grease in here. Your cages go in. This goes in against it. You flip it over. You put your lock washers on, and we're going to show you right now. So you have your grease. You play the grease, you get it everywhere where you don't want it to go. Hopefully some of it where you do want it to go in your hub. It's important to pack. You're packing the inside of the hub. This is stepped down in the center for a reason. This is your grease pack. There's space in the hub, there's space on your spindle here to pack that up. So you pack that first. Put your wheel down. Pack all that there. Just lightly on this side. Lightly get on this side. Now at this point in time, you don't need any grease on the inside. That's when you put the axle on. We'll get to that later. Right now, grease on the inside is irrelevant. So that's on the inside of the spindle, for those who weren't following that. You want it on the inside of the hub, on the outside of the spindle. So what we have is an evenish coating in that little indent. You can see it. Now we go back to our big bearing surface here, and we pack it. Before we put the bearings in, we pack it. You've got to have this all nice and greasy. You don't want any bearing surface that doesn't have a coating of grease on it. Not in any way, shape, or form. Not against the cage, not against the wheel, not against anything. It's got to have grease everywhere, so you pack it. It's going to have extra grease, that's okay, it gets wiped off. But you got to make sure everything's coated with fresh grease. There's lots of good axle grease. You can use marine grease if you're worried about getting water in it. You're going to ride in the rain. It's excellent grease, keeps the water out. Ride in the rain. So on my Harley Davidsons, I don't use marine grease. I do on my axles on my trailers. Okay, we have our clean bearings over here. Now I wipe the bearings off, and then these cameras can pick it up or not. They're over on this side. So I don't think, I'm in camera range, so I'll pull these back over here carefully without spilling them. Now again, we mic them, we know they're all the same size, we know their standard size. Have it nice and packed. Okay, now after I pack this is why you want to cross-reference your book, because it shows you where your spacers go, and just so there's no doubt in your mind that you put the spacer on the right side. It's got to go on the right side of the bearing cage. There's little spacers. So this is an early spindle, so it doesn't take a spacer on the small bearing cage, but it certainly takes one on the big bearing cage, and you want to, without doubt, have it on the right side. Everything's clean. If I put the grease back in, you don't have to. This is what I do, and this is my way. So I don't consider reusing grease when I put it on a clean surface. If it ain't that clean, you shouldn't be putting it inside your wheel. Get it follow? So we've got this here. That's that there. This off. Got plenty of grease on my wheel. I don't want to get any more, so I'm going to wipe the fingers off. There we go. Now, take our wheel up. And we put our bearing cage in first, carefully. We take our big spacer there, put a little grease on it, and everything gets coated. If you don't coat it, you're asking for problems. Don't create star hub problems. This is as simple as it gets. Don't be an idiot. Always have grease on everything. Don't assume there's enough grease here or there. Extra grease you can wipe right off. Okay? So your spacer's in. Now you take your sleeve and you pop your sleeve in. Sometimes they don't like popping. This is a really tight sleeve. It has no wear. So it's going to fit really, really tight. This is a new old stock hub. This is as good as it gets. Any better, it's never going to have any mileage. But I really, I'm like, oh my God, this is so wow. So, we're going to take this here and pop that there. Wipe our hand off. Wipe a little of this extra grease off before we really make a mess. Now, if you over grease this, you go down the road, it's going to go zing, 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 zing everywhere. But it's better to have a couple zingies of extra grease than it is a non-greased hub. That's what rags are for. It's not the end of the world. This is how we get rid of the extra grease. If you don't get rid of the extra grease on this side, you're not going to get your cork in. You're not going to get your snap rings in. and you're going to create a problem. Okay? So that's that. Off that there. Now there's two snap rings here on this side. So we're going to set this down here. And we're going to go get a snap ring plier, which I should have had already. And we'll be right back. Okay, we've got our snap ring pliers. Come on. Sometimes they don't like to pop in. Any more than they like to pop out. That's what screwdrivers are for. Come on, get in there. Right. And that's why I brought my little tool over, called an Allen wrench. Sometimes these little pliers have to readjust themselves, and all of a sudden they become unusable.